Yes, thank you for that. I'm going to be introducing our next keynote speaker, whose name is Giovanni Crisanti. He works as a policy advisor at the European Parliament in the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committees, and he's a contract university teacher at Rome Tor Vergata University. He has previously worked for the Public Affairs and Institutional Communication of the Vice President of the House of Parliament in Italy, and he is the founder of La Sociata, a youth organization that collects the commitment of hundreds of young students and experts to build proposals to influence politics with innovative projects, the result of a constructive and plural confrontation. He is the author of 2 books, Batiti, The Harmony of Change, and Virtual Politic, Elections and Consensus in the Realm of the Internet. So join me in giving him a warm welcome.
Okay, so thank you everybody here, and thank you for the introduction. I will cut a part of my speech then, because I'll be shorter for this. So thank you for this wonderful colloquium. Thank you for these days. It was a pleasure and an honor of being here and listening to you all. It was super inspiring. And for what regards me, when I was invited, I was thinking, how should I start? And when I decided what to focus on for my speech, I started by asking myself a simple question with a very hard answer, which is why? Why these wars? Why now? Because my generation was raised in Europe with a general certainty and idea that wars would have only been spare, rare events, limited in some areas. Of course, something violent, something rude, but limited. And our role, we were raised and born and raised and taught that would have been the ones of trying to see how to do our part in order to, bring a little bit of peace, help, something like that. Then, when I did my thesis in 2020 with General Giancotti here, and then also the update with the masters, we realized that actually it wasn't like that, and that international community, the UN, the EU, democracies in general were failing a lot in helping countries in recovering, failed states in building new states and democracies. But still, if they could follow some criteria which we tried to identify in the approach to complex systems, they could give a help. And that was our idea. But we were talking about local issues, regional issues, Afghanistan, Iraq, Somalia, Libya, Vietnam, all cases which I know since when I was born in 1999, which were limited, which were regional. Now the domain is changing. Within some years, we know about Ukraine, we know about the massacre in Palestine, we know about, these days we're working on it at the European Parliament, the invasions on the borders of drones and other domains of wars, with AI, drones, new technologies which are entering. And we don't hear much global leaders about how to solve these issues. We don't hear them talking a lot about peace, but we hear them talking about wars and how to use the force for the first time, more and more, without even hiding themselves in front of the public opinion. Why? And what's the role of the younger generations in this? Because after World War II, we were thought that we would have had ministries of defense, departments of defense. So the role of the armed force would have been the ones of defending us. And now we are listening about departments of wars. So we're shifting from defense to offense. Why? What's the reason behind that? And does offending really serve security? The answer is quite simple. No, absolutely not. We are seeing it in Ukraine, in the Middle East, etc. And in Europe, this is to give you just 2 personal experiences. We are talking a lot about how to reach this objective of securing Europe. And in the last years, I was working on this in the committees. We are working on this so-called program of Rearm EU, which in the title has itself the idea that we are rearming states to do something with these weapons, and this is crazy. That's why it was super hard on our position to foster an idea of these investments in defense for something common, not to use the force. But it was super hard because there's the idea that we have to rearm single states for putting stronger actors against each other, for putting stronger actors in front of weaker enemies. And there's the idea that this will serve security, but this will not at all. And so we try every day to, I mean people who share these values, to foster the idea that we need to invest in common responsibilities, so common spending, so common investments, so common risks, so common trust. And this is the idea that is missing. We don't have anymore any trust among each other. And we know also from the speeches we heard in these days that putting stronger people against each other is not deterrence at all. And deterrence can be as such only if it is common, not if it is built upon the idea of individualism of member states. True deterrence lies in community building, it lies in dialogue, it lies in mutual trust. But this idea is very hard to be fostered. And here I bring my second experience, which is with the La Sociata organization, which I understand it's quite hard to be pronounced in English because it means something like associating people together. It was born in 2018. I was at my second year of the bachelor, where I met Professor Ibrahim and General Giancotti, etc. And our idea was the ones of building events where hundreds of young people, young citizens, could be together in trying to talk about issues related with the city of Rome at the beginning. We made different tables with experts and young people talking about transport system, trash cycle, how to give room and spaces to young generations. And already there, with a thing which is not war and it's not peace, it's something more practical, there were lots of problems. Why? Because many people were thinking that there was some rip-off, that there was some cheat on them. Why? Because they thought that putting people from a political part, left-wing with right-wing, for example, or putting people who have different objectives in the society would have been something risky, would have been something which doesn't help. But we succeeded. Why? Because we didn't surrender to the idea of sectarianism. Why this? Because if we act since 7 years, it is useful because having people with different thoughts together will be the means through we as individuals will live in the society with that spirit. And now there's people like me who work in the EU, there's people who serve the institutions in other ways, there's people who teach at university, there's people who do their jobs normally, there's people who, research, there's a lot of different professionalities which have a common spirit, which is the ones of dialogue, of common trust. And I believe that soft power should be focusing on that, on building dialogues among people from different perspectives, sharing ideas, spaces, building up trusts, talking about peace and how to build this. This is the only way we have to strengthen multilateral institutions. Multilateral institutions are failing because what's failing is trust. And actually, how can we do that? Tying together, binding our interests together. It's hard, of course. We can start with people with whom we share values, and then we are large. Slowly, we open up to other people, like we're doing here. This is a perfect example of how to do that. Gathering people from all over the world. Somebody works in the business, somebody works in the institution, somebody is in the university, somebody is in the armed force, somebody is in politics, but everybody can share a common value. And we can maybe try to shift the use of the force to something which offends, from something which offends, sorry, to something which really defends and ensures not to use it, which is kind of hard, I understand. But it's what democracies are based on. And how do we start? With projects like this. Somebody may say, oh, it's only talks, oh, it's only people talking, then we forget about it. Oh, no, it's useless. No, it will be disappearing. That's not true, because everybody will go back to its own country, his own country or her own country, with this spirit, and will act on every field and every sector with this idea. We will all remember this. And let me close with an example which provokes you, but which I find very, very, very clear in this. When talking about projects like this, you never know if it will be working, no? You look for money, you look for people helping you, you look for places, you look for the proper objective for which to work with, but you never know if it works. But when you want to innovate, you have two roads. There is a crossroad. One is the coffee machine. So if we think of a project as a coin, you put it in the coffee machine, €1, one coffee, $1, one coffee, one project, one coffee, one result. So safe projects, sure results, quite easy, but also with a low impact. I think, being also in the United States, we have the example of the Silicon Valley on the other side of the country, that we can maybe try, and this project is doing this, to follow a different perspective, which is the ones that I call, this is to provoke, please don't play that, the slot machine. Why? Because you put one coin, nothing. One project, nothing. One other project, nothing. Okay, let's try this different one, nothing. Then another one, nothing. But then when you put the right project in, the right coin, you'll get a massive result. And that's what we must do with this colloquium. So that's why I thank you. And that's why I think, thank you, that we have to take chances and take risks, because that's the only way we have, being here together in Harvard from everywhere in the world. That's the only way we have for trying to see if there's an innovative way to foster peace and to foster dialogue among nations. Thank you so much. Thank you.